As crazy as it sounds, in just a few weeks, I'm going to be having brain surgery. So I wanted to take a few minutes on this video to share how we got to this point, how I'm feeling now, and what we're expecting in the days ahead. For many years, I was a worship pastor, leading music at churches every Sunday. I loved that role and greatly enjoyed playing the piano, guitar, and even the drums as part of these ministries. At the beginning of 2018, I stepped down out of the music role to pursue other ministries. But I still enjoyed playing the piano and drums whenever I could. However, as that year progressed, as I kept playing at home, I noticed I was starting to have some difficulties with my right hand. I just assumed it was because I wasn't practicing every day, no big deal, and just brushed it off. But every couple of months, it was getting worse and worse. My hand was just getting slower and stiffer when I was trying to play. And that slowness and lack of dexterity actually eventually made it difficult for me to type on the keyboard as well. So that's when I decided, or I should say, my wife decided that it was time we should probably figure out what's going on. Conveniently for me, my dad was a neurologist. So at our family Thanksgiving that year, I told him what was going on and he immediately jumped in and tried to help. We connected with my primary care doctor shortly after that. They worked together to come up with some plans, some ideas, and run some tests and try to figure out what was going on. And throughout the whole next year, through 2019, we were at a point of waiting for more tests and waiting to see more specialists. They were pretty much at a loss for what could be causing this. And unfortunately, later in that year, my dad was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. This was really hard for us because he never smoked or drank a day in his life. There was no reason why he should have gotten this disease. But I never heard my dad complain about it once. In fact, I remember going to see him in the hospital and he was more concerned about trying to figure out what was going on with my hand than he was about his own cancer. Then the year 2020 hit. In March of 2020, as you know, COVID shut down the world and we have been the same ever since. Then in April, after just 6 months after his diagnosis, my dad passed away with his battle from cancer. The very next month, in May, I finally got in to see the specialist we were waiting for, and he is the one that diagnosed me with early onset Parkinson's disease. At first, I was honestly a little relieved because we've been trying to figure out what this was for the last 2 years. Now we had a diagnosis, we knew what it was. So I asked the doctor, what do we do next? How do we fix this? And I very clearly remember what he said that day. He said, Tim, you are not going to die from Parkinson's. You're going to die with Parkinson's. It's not going to kill you, but there's no cure for this disease. Well, that was encouraging, but he did very kindly share some options about medicines, exercises, physical therapy, support groups, and other areas that can help minimize the symptoms and help me live a fairly normal life. And he was right. Within a few months, we found a good dose of medicines that really helped. Last week, I actually found a video of during this time, right before I started taking the medicines, and I was trying to play the scales on the piano. And you can see how slow my right hand is compared to my left. And then the second video I want to show you real quick is of after I'd been taking medicines for a few months and how much it had helped. Take a look.
Today is October 28th. Here's the speed of the left hand C scale. And the right. This is so bad. Make the thumb. One more. Oh, hello everyone. Today is December 3rd. We're going to test out good old hands. Here's the lefty. And the righty. It's getting better.
Getting better.
That was my son, who was 8 at the time, saying, getting better. And it was. The medicines that we were taking was a huge help, and I moved forward with most people not even knowing I had this disease. I coached my kids' soccer teams, exercised at the gym, made adjustments at work, and did my best to keep moving forward. However, as Parkinson's is known to do, the symptoms continued to get worse. After a while, I struggled with my whole arm instead of just my hand. Things like trying to put my jacket on or throw a ball with my kids became very difficult. One day I remember my kids were heading out to school and I was just trying to wave goodbye. I lifted up my right arm to wave and I just froze. I can't move my hand like that. And when I froze like this for too long, my son looked at me kind of like, "Dad, what are you doing?" And so now I just use my left hand to help, and that works well. Throughout the next 2 years, I did my best with increasing medicines, learning how to do daily life mostly with my left hand, and kind of just hoping it would get better. And by the time we got to the beginning of 2023, the right hand and right arm difficulties were now also my right leg and my right foot. My speech was now noticeably softer and stuttering, and people were constantly having a hard time understanding what I was saying. And when I went to see the neurologist again in February, she noticed the left hand was starting to show signs of weakness as well. And I think that's when it finally hit me that this disease is not going away. I'm missing so many joys of playing games with my kids and being there fully with my wife. I hate not being able to play the drums and piano at church again. And even worse, now I'm struggling to keep up with work enough to be able to provide for my family. And when you look at the future ahead of Parkinson's and the high probability that it's going to keep getting worse, quite honestly, it's quite depressing. There are many, many people working on it, but as of today, there is no cure for Parkinson's. So there's nothing that I can do to get rid of it. But what I can do is be grateful for what I do have and use what I do have to make the most out of every single day God gives me. So at that appointment in February, I told my neurologist I was ready to go. I want to amp up my treatments, do whatever I can to fight this disease for as long as possible. So we started with pretty much doubling my medicines, and that helped for a while, but it also had its new list of side effects. And then I went through an entire month of physical therapy and speech therapy. They both were helpful as well, but still didn't get me to that place where I wanted to be. So that brings us to today. The next option to help fight with this disease is a brain surgery called Deep Brain Stimulation, or DBS. When I first heard about this 2 years ago, I said, no way, no chance, not me, not happening. I was not interested at all. However, over this last year, I've heard story after story of great success from this surgery. So what they do with this surgery is they place 2 electrodes inside your brain and connect it to a controller and battery in your chest. This device is then programmed by the doctor and tailored to my specific symptoms. Parkinson's looks different for every patient, but it occurs because of a lack of dopamine in the brain, which prevents it from sending the correct signals throughout your body. So they program this device to send the signals that the brain is missing, which is incredible. And the amazing thing to me is that as Parkinson's continues to progress, the doctors can increase and change the signals as needed to keep fighting this disease for years to come. So the surgery is highly expected to increase my movement with hopes to improve daily life and to be able to play those instruments again as well. It should also replace or at least decrease the medicines that I'm taking, which would be a huge blessing. So even though I never thought I'd be saying this, I'm very excited for the opportunity to have this surgery. And I told my kids with the battery pack in my chest, I'll pretty much be Iron Man. So here we go. Seriously though, I do ask for your prayers. Even though they've done thousands of these surgeries, of course there are always risks involved. And just to be a little vulnerable with you today, the surgery is not the only thing in my life right now that's causing some stress. As it happens for all of us at times, there are many things that are piling up right now that are causing some extra stress for us. And it's easy to get to this place where we feel hopeless and feel like there's no way we can dig ourselves out of this hole and get through these difficulties that we're facing. But what I've realized in the last few months is that sometimes that's exactly where God wants us to be. Being in a place of struggle, especially when a lot of it's out of our hands, is an amazing time to place your focus and your trust in God. God's plan doesn't always make sense. Believe me, I wish it did. But I've seen over and over again how His timing is perfect. For instance, as I've been struggling through these last couple of months, God has used several studies from our church small group to encourage me in a powerful way. Our group has been reading through the book of Mark about how the disciples interacted with Jesus when He was here on earth. I want to share a couple of these stories with you and hope they can be an encouragement to you as well. One was when Jesus was with the disciples and they're on a boat traveling from one city to the next. On this boat, they got caught in a bad storm where water waves were coming over the side of the boat. There was likely heavy rain and wind and thunder and lightning. Disciples were running around everywhere trying to stabilize the boat and keep from sinking. They're going crazy, not sure what to do next, and they cried out to Jesus, "Help us, help us." Jesus stands up and says, "Hush, be still." And that storm instantly became calm. Life will throw a lot at us. Health problems, financial concerns, relationship issues, job issues, anxiety, stress, doubts, fears, on and on and on. But God tells us to hush, be still, and trust in him. With all that's going on in my life right now, that definitely got my attention. Another story was one of the many where Jesus and the disciples were healing people of sickness, blindness, and other diseases. The disciples were able to help with most of them. There was one boy that they just could not heal. They tried all they could do, and they just failed. They were about to give up, but then they asked Jesus to come. And Jesus said, "Bring the boy to me." Jesus performed an incredible miracle and saved that young boy. And just like the disciples, we are going to get in places in life where we try to fix things and solve problems that are too big for us to handle. We have to bring them to God and remember that no problem and no disease is too big for our God. The last story I want to share is when there was a crowd of over 5,000 people that followed Jesus. They wanted to see his miracles and they wanted to hear him speak. They had been with him for a long time that day, and for the sake of their health and well-being, they needed to get something to eat. They had been there for a long time. The disciples were concerned, how in the world are we going to feed this many people? They said, we don't have enough food, we don't have money, we don't have the time to go buy anything. And then they were just continuing to stress out and not sure how they're going to handle this. But Jesus asked them, "What do you have?" The disciples looked around, gathered up what they had, and it was 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. So Jesus took that small offering that they had, he blessed it, and he miraculously fed over 5,000 people. And I believe that in the same way, we need to bring what we have to God and watch the amazing things that he will do from there. We might not feel that we have much to offer him or offer this world, but he can work through us and multiply our efforts in amazing ways. We just have to be obedient and trust him. As I mentioned earlier, I'm always amazed by God's timing. The same weeks that we were studying these stories in Knoxville, Tennessee, some friends from Seattle introduced me to a new song with these same messages. The first time I heard More Than Able by Elevation Worship, it brought me to tears because it's my story right now. The song asks the question, when did I stop believing God could do miracles? And who am I to deny what the Lord can do? It reminds us that he is more than able to do greater things than we could ever ask or even imagine. And I love the ending of the song. It simply says, he's not done with me yet. There's so much more to the story. He's not done with me yet. Yes, my family is going through some stressful times right now, and I know many of you watching this have difficulties that you are walking through. But I pray that we can all be encouraged to keep our faith and our trust in God through the ups and downs in life. And remember, there is so much more to the story. He's not finished with us yet.